Hello everyone, this is Jason Merkel with Horizon Hobby, and I'm here today at the Flying Field, RC Club Flying Field, to show you guys our smartest and best club trainer ever. And this is the E-flite Apprentice STS. And the reason we're at an RC flying field or a club flying field is because that's exactly what this model is intended for. We do have some smaller trainer aircraft in our E-flite brand as well as our Hobby Zone brand, and those models are sometimes intended to be flown in other places that are not as large or as open as this. But that said, if you're very serious about learning to fly radio-controlled aircraft, a lot of times it's helpful to belong to a club. They usually have a nice paved runway, as in this case, or maybe a grass landing strip as well. But the benefit to flying an airplane like this at a field like that is that it's a larger airplane, which means you can fly it in a little bit more wind. Now, granted, if you're a first-time pilot, you do want to try and avoid flying in the wind if you can, but if you can't, this model can handle it a lot better than some of the smaller trainers that are out there because of the larger size, the higher weight. All those things add up, a little more control, a little bit more power, so on and so forth. The other benefit to learning to fly a model this size is that a lot of the components that are in this aircraft or come with this aircraft can be used in other larger aircraft as well. So for example, the controller can be used with other airplanes, also the battery that's installed inside the airplane right now. Real quick, I'll mention that I am flying today a box stock ready to fly version. RTF for short. What that means is it includes everything that you need in the box to get to the flying field and get into the air. So you don't have to buy anything extra. You buy that one box. It includes the airplane, which is mostly factory assembled. You have to do a little bit of minor finishing assembly, but most of the electronics are already installed inside. It does come with the controller, or as we call it, the transmitter. This is a Spektrum Dxe Transmitter, and as I mentioned before, this transmitter can be used with other aircraft down the road. There's some details on that in other places on the Spektrum website in particular, also in our E-flite instruction manuals, but that's very nice that you can use this controller for other aircraft after you learn to fly this. Inside right now, installed in the belly, I've got the standard 3-cell 3200 milliamp 30C Spektrum Smart LiPo battery that comes with the ready to fly version. That battery provides very long flight times, upwards of 10 to 20 minutes, sometimes even a little bit longer if you use lower throttle settings, which may not sound like a long time if you're a first-time pilot, but trust me, that is. It's more than enough time to get a couple of good practice sessions in and then land and take a break. It may seem like you want to fly longer than 10 to 20 minutes in one time, but in general, you don't necessarily want to. So that battery comes with it. It also comes with a smart USB charger, which you can power with either an AC outlet using a USB adapter like your phone charger. You can also plug it into your car and charge that way as well. The one benefit of a smart battery and a smart charger is you plug it in, you don't have to know any settings. You don't have to make any changes to the type of the battery or the charge rate of the battery. It does it all for you, which makes it very safe, very simple, very easy. So again, I'm flying it box stock with the controller it comes with, the battery it comes with. That said, I did install two of the optional accessories that we offer for this model. One of which is the GPS unit, which I've got installed on the door back here. This is the GPS module. By installing that, I get additional features, which makes this a Safe Plus airplane. Out of the box, it has our exclusive Spektrum Safe technology, but by adding this GPS module, I now have Safe Plus, and I'll get into those details here in a minute. I also have on the bottom here, this is the LAS, Landing Assist Sensor. This sensor can see where the ground is at, and it makes the airplane land a little bit softer on its own when you're in the beginner or intermediate flight mode. When you're in the experienced flight mode, it's not activated, so you still land the airplane. And so real quick, I'll go over those different flight modes. So again, this aircraft is equipped with Safe, and in Safe, you've got a 3-position switch here. This switch controls the flight modes. You have beginner flight mode, you have intermediate flight mode, and you have experienced flight mode. In the beginner flight mode, you have limited bank angle limits and pitch angle limits. You can't roll the airplane upside down and crash it. You can't pitch the airplane up enough to stall it, push the nose down into the ground and crash it. And then when you let go of the stick here, which controls up, down, left, and right, when you let go of that, the airplane goes back to level. So if you ever get panicked or in trouble, you just let go of the stick and the airplane will fly straight ahead for you. Now, of course, you'll have to turn it potentially down the road, or if you have Safe Plus installed with the GPS module, we'll get to that in a minute here of some of the benefits that come along with that. And then after you maybe progress a little bit in the beginner mode, and it takes some people many flights in the beginner mode to get used to flying the airplane, but then you can switch to intermediate mode. In intermediate mode, we have higher angle limits, so you can bank more and you can pitch more. But when you let go of the stick, it doesn't go back to level. And that's teaching you the next step of learning to fly an airplane, where you then have to fly the airplane back to level. Now, if you flip back to beginner mode, it'll go right back to level. But if you stay in the intermediate mode, it's giving you a little bit more control and requiring you to input more control to basically fly the airplane around comfortably. Then finally, we have the experienced flight mode. In this flight mode, there's no limitations. You can fly upside down, you can do loops, you can do rolls, aerobatics, you have full control. So if you're an experienced pilot, you could do a lot of really cool maneuvers in this mode. If you're a new pilot, you can flip to this mode, try it out. If you get in trouble, just flip back to beginner mode. You can also take advantage of the panic recovery mode. That's an option as well. But the benefit of the safe technology is that you have those 3 steps of progression. It's very easy to fly the airplane. It's easy to take off the airplane. It's easy to land the airplane in the beginner flight mode. Intermediate gives you a little bit more, experienced, so on and so forth, which is really exciting. And again, by installing the GPS module, we not only have those safe functions in flight modes, we also have Safe Plus. The Plus gives you some additional features because of the GPS unit being installed. The first feature, which is really, really cool, is that if you take off and you fly away almost too far, the airplane will hit what we call the virtual fence. Basically, it's an invisible fence line. It'll hit that fence and it'll come back to you. Sometimes when you're learning to fly, you tend to lose orientation, or you just fly too far away. Maybe if it's windy, the wind pushes the airplane too far beyond your line of sight. It will hit this imaginary fence, it's not imaginary, it's there. It's basically an invisible fence, and the airplane will come back. It will hit the fence, turn around, it takes control from you. When it comes back, it will then wag its wings after flying back a little ways, and then you have control again. So I'll show that here in the flight part of the video. And so that's a really cool feature. The other feature is if you just tap this button here, it will go into what's called holding pattern. So we're gonna set the home point on the ground here, and I'll show you guys that in a few minutes. But when I tap that button, if it's in the air, it's gonna come back to and circle around that point until I either hit that button again or I flip to a different flight mode. So it's kind of like a way to pause the flight or to return home without landing. But then the final feature that Safe Plus gets you, which is really, really awesome, is auto land. By holding this button down for 4 to 5 seconds, the airplane will automatically fly around and land almost exactly right where we initialize our home point. Now, there's a little bit of variation depending on if there's a little bit of wind like there is today, obviously some of the resolutions of GPS, so on and so forth, but it is really cool to watch the airplane more or less come in on its own. And then if you also have the LAS installed, it can see where the ground is, and it'll set down almost exactly where it started from in a very soft, very easy landing, probably better than a lot of experienced pilots can do it. So I'll show you guys that here in a minute. So first I'm going to turn on my controller, my transmitter. You do want to do that. I've already installed the battery inside the airplane. It's already plugged in. And then not all airplanes have this, but this particular model does have an on-off switch here on the side. And I'm going to flip it on. And now that I have everything on and I have the throttle stick all the way down, it's going to turn on, and it's first going to start to look for GPS, and that's why the elevator is moving up and down here. It's basically getting a satellite lock. Once it has that, now it's going to center the elevator, and basically now it's initialized and ready for the next step. Now, if you have the GPS installed, you will want to take advantage of, we've got this action card. It's basically kind of like a short description of the different types of virtual fence modes that there are available with GPS. I have it set to the airfield mode. There is standard circle modes where it basically flies from a center point. It can go all the way around you. We don't want to do that. When we're at a flying field like this, we want to fly over the field area, not back over the pits, the parking area where everybody has their airplanes and their cars. That's not safe. So we're gonna use the airfield mode, and we're gonna tell it not to fly that direction, but to fly that direction. So before I can do that, I'm gonna show you that if I run the motor, it will not stay at full power, even if I move it to full power. So I'm gonna show you that really quick. You can hear it pulsing. That's telling us that we haven't set the home point yet. So we have to initialize that first. So I'm going to taxi and drive the airplane out onto the runway, point the nose into the wind, that's very important, in the center of the runway at the point where I want it to come back to if I use the auto land function or if I use the holding pattern function. Then once I do that, we have another step. So here I am taxiing the airplane out using a low power setting. And again, I won't have enough power to take off right now because I haven't set that home point. So the wind is coming from our right to our left. So I'm going to point the nose into the wind more or less on the center line of the runway. And now I'm going to press this button and hold it down until you can see the ailerons wagging back and forth. That means I've now set my home point. Now I have one more step. If I move the throttle, nothing happens because I haven't told the airplane which direction the field is. I can tell it's that way or this way. Because I want it to go that way, I need to move the aileron stick to the left to point that direction to the left of the airplane. So I do that, let go, it wags the ailerons. I've now set my home and initialization point and also the direction that the airfield virtual fence will be, which is away from us. So it will not allow the airplane to fly behind us. Now I'm going to take off in the beginner mode. I'm going to show you guys how easy it is to take this airplane off. I am basically just going to let it take off on its own by giving it full power. And there it goes all by itself. Beautiful takeoff, better than some experienced pilots can do it. And I'm going to turn around. And first things first, I'm gonna go out away from us and I'm gonna show you that virtual fence in action. I'm gonna keep flying all the way away from us. And when it gets to that certain distance out, it's gonna hit that virtual fence. It's gonna turn around by taking control away from me. It just turned around. Now it has full control on its own. When it wags its wings, now I have control. So that virtual fence has 4 sides to it basically. It's a rectangle. So I just went pretty much out from us. Now I'm gonna go to our left. We're gonna hit it out on the left side there. It hit it, now it's coming back. It's gonna wag the wings when I have control again. So now I have control again. Now I could fly to the other side and show you that, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna show you though, if I tried to fly this direction, which is back over the parking area in the pits, it's gonna hit that virtual fence and bring it back over the runway, which is exactly what we want for safe flying. So there you guys can see the virtual fence function, which is really cool. Now I'm gonna show you the holding pattern. I'm at about half power. I'm just going to tap the button here and it's going to go into the holding pattern. So you can see the airplane is flying itself now and it's going to just basically make a circle over that initialization point that we set before we took off. And that's it. It'll continue to do this until the battery runs out. And even if the battery ran out, it would basically more or less come down in a slow descending circle. So that's the beauty of this, is it allows you to either pause the flight, or if you're further away, it'll come back to that home point and get you back into good line of sight with the airplane and allow you to kind of regain your composure and you know, get ready to fly again. So I'm going to turn that off by hitting the button again, and now I have control again. So that's the second feature that Safe Plus gives you. By the way, guys, I'm still flying in the beginner flight mode, which is a function of the original Safe. So even if you don't have the Safe Plus installed with the GPS module, you still have Safe with the beginner, intermediate, and experienced flight modes. So while it's flying around here real quick, I'm going to show you an auto landing. I am going to hold the button down for 4 to 5 seconds, and the airplane on its own, all by itself now, it's going to make a landing approach and ultimately land as close as it can to that initialization point that we set. So I'm not touching the controls right now, guys. The airplane is turning onto more or less what we call the final, lining up with the runway, lining up with that initialization point, pointing the nose into the wind, which is very important. You always want to take off and land into the wind. Even real airplanes, full-scale airplanes do this too. So the airplane's going to come down, and because I have the landing assist sensor installed in the belly, when it sees the ground within a few feet, it's going to pump the nose up, add a little bit of power, and set down. Look at that, guys. That was phenomenal. That is almost exactly where we initialized our GPS point before takeoff. So I'm going to lower the power now, and I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the GPS and show you the different safe flight modes. So to turn that off, I hold this button down and I wag this switch back and forth 5 times. You can see it wags the surfaces. I've now disabled GPS, and I wanted to do that because I want to show you, if you don't have GPS installed, I'll show you what the airplane can still do. So I'm going to take off again in the beginner flight mode. All by itself. In the beginner flight mode, when you add full throttle, it has some up elevator and it kind of climbs out for you. And you can see when I move the stick all the way to one side, it just makes a turn. It doesn't roll over and crash, which is pretty impressive. So I can do that the other way. And that makes it very easy to learn how to fly. It's almost like driving a car in the sky. It's that simple. When I pull back on the stick, it will only go up a certain angle there. It won't go all the way up and do a loop. And if I turn around and I push the nose down, we have it limited even more going down, so you can't push the nose and crash straight down. And if I let go, it goes back to level. So if I'm ever not sure what I'm doing, let's say I'm making a tight turn and I get confused, I just let go and it goes right back to level on its own. So that, guys, is the beginner flight mode. Very, very easy to fly in the beginner flight mode. I'm going to switch to the intermediate flight mode now, and I'm going to show you what that does. So I'm going to bank to one side, and you can see it makes a tighter turn, but it's also losing altitude. So I'm putting some up elevator in now as well to keep the airplane from losing too much altitude. But when I let go of the stick, it doesn't go back to level because I need to fly the airplane back to level. So if I was making a right-hand turn, I need to give it a little bit of left to get it back to level. And that's teaching you the skills that you need to fly more advanced aircraft or to fly this airplane in the experienced mode down the road. So again, the intermediate mode is kind of a step in between beginner and experienced where you've got more control, but still not full control of the airplane just yet. And if you ever get in trouble, if you're in the experienced mode and or intermediate mode and you feel like you're gonna crash, let go of the stick and switch back to beginner mode and it'll go right back to level. Very simple. So I'm gonna show you guys a landing in beginner mode without the GPS active. So I am going to land the airplane, but that said, in the beginner flight mode, landing this airplane is as easy as it gets. I'm gonna fly down to the end of the runway, make a turn, basically onto what we call that final approach. So I'm lined up more or less on the runway. I'm just letting the airplane come down. I'm steering it a little bit to keep it pointed toward the middle of the runway, and I'm just letting it come down all by itself. All by itself. I'm not doing anything other than using a little bit of the aileron control to keep it on the center of the runway. I'm not gonna touch anything and let it come down. And you can see that the LAS is trying to add a little bit of power to smooth out that landing for us. And that's it. That's how easy it is to land in the beginner flight mode. So now guys, I'm gonna show you the experienced flight mode. Just for fun, we're gonna see what this airplane can do. So now watch, even though it's a beginner aircraft, it's capable of more advanced flying, including aerobatics. So check this out. Upside down, no problem. Can turn it while I'm upside down, fly it closer to us. Can roll back to upright, make tighter turns now. And then I can also do aerobatics like loops and rolls. Roll to the right, roll to the left. And that's it, guys. So those are the 3 flight modes that you get with Safe. You also have with Safe Plus. That's the experienced flight mode. And if you're an experienced pilot, it's a lot of fun to fly this airplane in the experienced mode. And you can see I'm gonna go ahead and land it now in the experienced flight mode as well. And now the LAS sensor, the landing assist sensor, is turned off. So I'm all on my own now. And you guys can see it's rolling out. And because this is a full function aircraft and I do have not only rudder yaw control, I have no steering control, so I can drive the airplane back here. It's what we call taxiing. I can taxi it back to us. And that's it. So there you guys go. That is the E-flite Apprentice STS. It's basically the smartest and best club trainer there's ever been if you wanted to learn how to fly radio-controlled aircraft. If you haven't flown in a long time and you want to get back into it, this is the perfect airplane to not only start with, but then you can also use some of the electronics from it in other aircraft down the road. But more importantly and honestly, even as an experienced pilot, I just love having an airplane like this with me all the time. I make my first flight of the day with a trainer to warm up. I can still have fun. You can see you can do aerobatics with it. You can teach other people to fly with it. Of course, if you're a beginner pilot, this is a great way to start, and then you can move from here into other airplanes down the road. Thank you.